Uh, all of them watching, all of them bring me options, all of them bring me top 10. My dealer bring me top 10. Give me.
So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for making the time for us to have this chat. I'm super excited. You have so many different titles: producer, engineer, DJ, artist, Apple Music's featured artist for Rap Life Africa.
That's
Congratulations.
crazy.
Right? How you feel
Thank you
about
so
that one
much.
though? That's a big one.
I knew kind of it was gonna happen. I didn't know when. So I was busy like on another call like a couple of minutes ago. And then I see my phone is just ping, 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 ping. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I look and it's a tweet by Slicker, and he said it's something along the lines of like Apple Music names, gay face, cover star, blah blah blah.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, what?
Me? That sounds like me.
So yeah, I was kind of caught off guard. But yeah, very excited, very honored to, be in that position. And like one of the messages attached to that is that female producers never see these types of honors happen often. So I'm excited to be that person, but I'm also more proud of the message it sends,
Yeah.
of like putting women in those spaces and putting women who produce in those spaces, not
Yeah.
just me. I'm part of a bigger group that I'm trying to represent.
So, I mean, you mentioned that it's not the norm. It's not every day that producers who just happen to be female get to stand in these kinds of positions and be in these kinds of spaces. I mean, it's 2022. Why do you think that is still kind of the case? What needs to shift? Is it a mindset? Is it the structures? What do you think it is that kind of needs to shift for that to become more normal?
So look, I think it's two main things, right? I think in general in South Africa, there's a lack of infrastructure for talents to be developed to a place where they do truly have an independent level of understanding of the industry, right? Um, I mean, I come across pro level producers who sometimes, are self-taught, and they've learned enough to get to where they are, and their talents are so incredible that the fine details doesn't matter. But not everyone has that opportunity.
Yeah.
Not everyone can afford to go study. Not everyone can afford a computer, internet connection. I mean, data even. So I feel like in general in South Africa, the infrastructure for developing young talent, whether it's artists, producers, engineers, it's difficult, and it's something that through my journey I'm trying to figure out how I can try and make a change with that, because I feel like if I'm not giving back or trying to stimulate or develop the producers and engineers and artists who are going to follow me, do I really care about the industry that I'm involved in? The second thing, and this is more specifically, pointed towards women in music, is I think unfortunately studio spaces just aren't safe.
Yeah.
South Africa and in general isn't a very safe place for women. We already have a tough time as it is, right?
Yes.
Now imagine being like locked up in a studio with a guy for hours, and you
Hours,
need to be
yeah.
vulnerable because you're making music, and not all men are, going to just see it as an innocent thing. Some people might have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
So again, that's something that I only recently, actually maybe a year ago, started understanding. I was like, oh wait, that's true. Like our studio safe spaces for female creators and women who want to create and be vulnerable and tell their stories without having to feel like someone is going to try and
Take advantage, yeah.
take advantage 100%. So yeah, like I never understood why people were like, oh, it's so incredible that you're an engineer, that you run studio sessions. I just thought that people loved it for the sake of like the music that I create.
Yeah.
But then I learned that a woman running a studio session for other women is the most ultimate safe space.
Yes.
And it's something that I take very seriously, and hopefully now, like in the next couple of months, it's something I can get back to. Like I just want to host, even if it's free studio sessions for any woman who want to create and just want a safe space to create, because it really does make a difference. So yeah, lack of infrastructure is one thing that's causing a little bit of a gap in how many women produce in our country, but also just the safety in studios and safety in
Yes.
general. I don't think it's a safer space, which is unfortunate. And it's unfortunately just the circumstance of the state of our country, you know.
Yeah.
So the whole, hopefully me speaking about it will raise awareness, and we can slowly start, you know, making a bit of a change that'll make things safer, better, more accessible. It's a long-term goal that I've set, that I want to try and be a part of the, you know, the switch to make things a little bit easier, a little bit safer, a little bit more accessible. How it'll happen, we'll figure out, but we'll
figure it out on the way.
Yeah, the passion is there, and that's all that matters for now.
100%. So, Kay, I mean, we've met a couple of times and stuff, but I don't know your music story. I know what you do. I know some of the things that you are capable of as well. I know now some of the things that you're also very passionate about, but I don't know how we got here. So let's go back there a little bit. What's Kay Faith's story? How did we get here? Why are we here?
So I've always loved music since I was a kid, right? And in my early days, I was very much exposed to music from watching a lot of television as a little kid, because I had older siblings who were like way older than me.
Yeah.
And didn't want to hang out with their baby sister. So it's like,
of course,
go watch TV, you know, because they were like teens already. And on TV, a lot of what I consumed was South African music. So this was SABC 1, Simunya Groove, Stays.
We are one.
Yeah. And it was very much like SA hip-hop, like the early stages of SA hip-hop, SA house, and Kwaito, right? So that was the one place where I was exposed to music a lot. But ironically, the other space that I was exposed to a lot of music was from my older brother. So we used to he was the first child to get a license. And then parents started going, I'm not going to the shop, you must go, here's the money, go buy the bread and the milk and whatever. And then I was just always excited to go everywhere with him because we were really close.
Yeah.
And him being like 10 plus years older than me, he used to play a lot of music in our car. So everything from like the Beach Boys to Nirvana to Missy Elliott, you know? And that's really, I think, where my love for hip-hop came from. Because I think I heard Eve and Gwen Stefani, Let Me Blow Your Mind for the first time. And I was like, whoa, what is this? You know?
Right.
And my love for Missy Elliott started in that space. My love for like all of these hip-hop artists that we know and love started in that space. So I've always loved music. And also my family comes from a line of guitarists, right? So very much like play guitar, sing along. That's a big part of my family. Like all of the uncles, they can all play guitar and they can all sing, and they sing all the traditional family songs and all of that stuff. And having someone that close to me play an instrument, I was like, that's really cool. I also want to play an instrument.
Right.
So picked up a guitar, started playing, learning, teaching myself how to play guitar, all of that type of stuff. So always been very musically involved. Which I guess was an outlet for me, just generally being a creative kid. When I got to high school, I got very deep into graphic design and art and graffiti, believe it or not, in a little small town where you'll get busted if you do graffiti because you're probably like one of 3 people that do it. And yeah, very much like loved drawing, loved painting, loved sculpting, like all of that type of stuff. So after school, my plan originally was to study art, right?
Okay.
My dream was to do fine arts course at Michaelis, which is UCT's art school. That's what I wanted to do after school. Then through just a crazy application process, I ended up getting in for a course in art history, which is the opposite of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, because it's more theoretical, right?
Yeah, and you have to, it's theoretical, it's history based. It was the side of art that I never really loved that much.
Okay.
So then I was kind of like, oh, well, what now? You know, I'm about to finish high school. My plans for my studies kind of fell through. Which direction now? And my stepmom was actually the one that said, hey, you love music so much. Why don't you look into studying something like sound engineering? And then I was like, that's really interesting. I'm going to, do a little bit of research and figure out
Yes.
what this is. And I was like, oh, okay, it's people who record and make music and work in studios. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, some of my favorite artists do that. I listen to Dr. Dre. I listen to Kanye West. They do that. Maybe I can do it too, you know? So I was fresh out of high school, moved to Cape Town, 18 years of age, and started my studies doing sound engineering, right? And yeah, look, did a little bit of everything. You know, I did some live sound, theater sound,
Yeah.
recording, a little bit of everything. But ultimately, what fit was the music production side of things and the audio engineering side of things, so recording, mixing, and mastering. So it's the avenue I started following. And then, you know, like one thing kind of leads to another. So I did a lot of music recording, music mixing, all of that stuff at first. And then I spent like a week in studio with Tweezy, looking over his shoulder, seeing how he works, how he produces.
Dope.
And I was like, I can do that. You know, if I had to practice, I could probably do that too. And then, you know, made the switch to be like, okay, engineering is cool and I'm good at it and I love doing it, but let me try out this producer's hat as well.
Right.
And because I was already working with so many rappers, mixing and recording for them, I used to play them my beats and be like, hey, I made this. Tell me what you think. And through that process, you know, got like my first rap placement. That's how I got some of my first placements with Youngster.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Oh, Vuzu, The Hustle, the TV show,
Yes.
right? A bunch of my Cape Townian friends went to compete in The Hustle. I can't exactly remember which season it was. But on the first round of eliminations, they sent all the Cape Town artists home. And I felt very unhappy about that. And I was like, you know what? I need to do something to be a voice for the city so that everyone could just put some respect on our name, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm not a rapper, so it's not going to happen like that.
That's not going down.
Yeah. Maybe I need to put myself out there as a producer. And that led to me putting together my first EP, In Good Faith, that came out 2017, did incredible. And I just wanted to keep the momentum going, and that eventually led to where we are now with the release of the album, Antithesis.
Right.
So, yeah, very long-winded story, but that's pretty much the whole journey.
It's not long-winded at all. It's very, very interesting to hear. So all of that happens, and now we are here. And Antithesis. How do we get to Antithesis? It's so layered. There's so much that we can talk about. I mean, when you look up the basic definition, it's a personal thing that is the direct opposite of someone or something else. How did we get there? Are you the antithesis? Are we finding the antithesis in the themes within the album? Why antithesis?
So it's actually a little combination of both of those, right? So when you say hip-hop producer, you do not expect to see a white woman in that space, right? And it's something I come across, I kid you not, on a, well, it's become less so now, but at first when these rappers rock up to the studio and I'm sitting there and they're like, who's this? And I'm like, I'm running this show. What do you mean, who's this?
I'm the person. So, I'm the thing.
Yeah, so a lot of times you get that like they judge you based on your appearance. They're like, nah, okay, this is going to be awkward. There's like white ladies here. I don't know what she's going to do. And then when they hear the music and they hear the beats and, you know, then the story changes very quickly. Yeah. So I've always tried to use that like element of surprise to my advantage, right? And I've tried to literally be the opposite of what you would traditionally judge someone who looks like me to be, you know? Like I come from a small town. I come from an Afrikaans family. You know, all of these things are very rarely associated with the industry that I'm in right now and the position within the industry that I am right now. So after my first EP, In Good Faith, came out, someone in an article wrote, K-Faith is what you would call the antithesis of hip-hop. And I was like, I quite like the sound of that. And then I had to Google what antithesis means because I didn't know what it meant when I read it the first time. So I read it and I was like, yo, that is me. I am the opposite. Like I am the unexpected thing in the room.
Yes.
So I very much see myself as that title, but in the same breath, another definition of antithesis is contrast. It's playing with opposing views or opposing ideas. And I mean, you can see that throughout the album. You see contrasting sounds together.
Yes.
You see different styles of tracks. You see artists that you've never seen on the same lineup before. Like, who would ever think to see like Reason and Sipo on the same track?
Yes, Sipo Gift, yeah.
Yeah. Reason, as we know, incredible lyricist, OG in the game.
One of my
one of the
favorites.
best in our country.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best in our country. And here we have Sipo, who's I don't want to say smaller artist. Let's say like he's got a smaller following because he's still very much developing himself in the audio industry. But in my opinion, also an incredible lyricist. And I was like, we've never seen these two people before together on a song. And I would love to be the thing that makes that happen.
Yeah.
And they came together on Life so beautifully, like Reason with the opening verse, came with Flames, and then Sipo gave this like deep and beautiful verse. And,
yes,
like these are two very contrasting characters in the game, but came together on the song and just made magic. So I feel like, that play of contrast, that play of like opposing ideas, opposing artists coming together and creating something that sounds beautiful, that's also ties into the whole theme of being, an antithesis type of music.
Yeah.
And I'm actually contemplating like making it its own genre in future. Like, oh, this is the antithesis style track.
Oh, dope.
But we'll get there. I need to figure out the finer details. I know what the sound is, but I don't know. Like, I wouldn't know how to describe it to you. So once I get the fine print figured out, then we'll launch the genre.
So, I mean, you just spoke about On Life, right? And kind of gave an idea of how maybe you went about selecting the people that would be on that track. But overall, I mean, there are a lot of incredible artists on your project. How did you go about deciding who is going to be on the project overall, and then who fits with who and where and how?
Yeah. So the first thing that's worth mentioning is everyone on the album are people that I have good relationships with.
Okay.
I only work with people if we get along. Because if we don't get along, we don't see eye to eye, there's weird vibes, you're not a nice person, how are we going to make beautiful music together?
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And secondly, I judge artists by my kind of like self-created creative identity that I have of them. So if you say Maglera Doe Boy, I already have like keywords that come to place.
Okay.
Incredible vernac rapper, unique voice, truly like diverse as an artist. He can rap, he can sing, he can go fast, he can go slow. I like to call him like, I think even though, the type of music he makes does fall into the mainstream, him himself, he's a very alternative sounding artist, someone like Uno July, I think, okay, very clean voice, OG rapper, incredible storyteller, also a very versatile artist, So in my mind, I have these creative identities for all the artists that I come across and who I work with. So, for example, with a track like Township Deluxe,
yes,
I knew the first person I had to go to was BlakLez, right?
Dope.
He's the first person I approached for the song. Now, him and I met in Cape Town while we were working on a project for Kanye Mavi.
Okay.
And let me tell you this embarrassing story. I knew who BlakLez was, but I don't know what he looked like.
What he looked like?
Yeah.
So how did that go down?
So we're in studio and like, we're working and he's like, yeah, okay, do you make beats? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, play me some of your stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Pull up some of my beats, play them. Everyone like, shows love to the beats. And he's like, let me play you one of my tracks. So I'm like, yeah, sure. I want to hear what your stuff is about. And he goes onto my YouTube and he types in BlakLez featuring Casper Nyovest. And I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, very, very embarrassing story. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I know the song, like
sure,
trying
yeah.
to play it cool. So we had a really good session in the studio and parted ways with each other's like details, like phone number, blah blah blah. And the parting understanding was that we'll work in future. That was the idea, right? So when I had the instrumental for Township Deluxe, I was like, this is it. Ringed him up, sent him the song, and what he sent back to me was like perfect, right? Because as much as I knew Township Deluxe sounded really good, I didn't want it necessarily to become a club track.
Okay.
I wanted it to be something that's, for the streets more so than for the clubs. Yeah, and that's what I think that's 100% what BlakLez did with that opening verse, like he kept it super straight. And then, like I just kind of follow through with it. So I'm like, okay, who would be nice next to BlakLez from a point of view of like lyrically they have to bring it. Les gave us some of the Sipitori reps. So I need someone who's got that like local flair, that like the knack flair. Who's the next person I can put next to him? Now Les was very like smooth with what he did on the track. So I was like, oh snap, who would actually sound really cool next to him? I should hit up Maglera. So I hit up Maglera and I was like, hey bruh, my pitch was like, who do you think would sound good on this song? Put me onto someone that you know. And then he was like, I'll give you a hook in the verse. I was like, there we go. Yes. Exactly what I needed. And then Township Deluxe was actually co-produced by AD.
Yes.
And I said to him, like, look, we share the song. It's both of our tracks. Whether it's released on my side or his side, it's still, a track that we both are part of. So who do you want to bring onto the song? And he said Kid X. And I was like, actually, that's not a bad choice. So he brought in the Kid X feature. And then with Cageism, that happened randomly. I literally put out a tweet. That said, looking for a male singer who can put some soul onto a hook for me.
You were literally just saying his name, really, without knowing. You were just saying his name.
And now Maglera mentioned to me when we worked, he was like, yo, you should get on the song. You should get KG on the song. And I was like, it feels so far away, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen, right? And then I looked at my phone and I saw like, KG tweeted at me like, yo, hit me up. And I was like, okay, it's probably like some like spam account acting like they, him or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I clicked on the account and I scrolled through it. And I was like, yo, this is actually him.
Is him.
It's him. And then like 20 minutes later, we were talking to each other on WhatsApp. I sent him the song. And I mean, he's an incredible person.
Yes, he is. Love him.
Lovely. So, he brought like that. I said to someone, like, I got so over all the rappers on the track. I just needed some soul.
Yeah.
And he brought exactly that, He brought exactly that. And yeah, like that's the process. It's kind of like, okay, this is who I want to start with.
Okay.
Yeah, they sent me something nice. What's the next puzzle piece going to be? Which is the next person I'm going to approach. So it's just trusting in your ear as a producer to know which voices would sound good on the music. And that comes from just consuming a lot of music and trusting in yourself and that your ear for it is good. And just having a network with artists that you have good relationships with. So if I need to be like, hey, Azizzar, can I get a verse from you? You're not
maybe not from me, but I'll talk all day. I'll talk for you whenever you need it.
So yeah, it's just having like good relationships with people and then trusting in your ear as an artist or a producer that you'll make the right creative calls at the end of the day.
So then tell me, in a situation where, for instance, you think someone sounds good, you think an Azizzar could do a really good job on this, and then I give you what I think is going to sound dope, but then you feel like it doesn't necessarily fit in with a greater vision, or whatever it is, maybe it just doesn't quite fit. How do you handle something like that? Especially because you say, at the end of the day, you have really good relationships with these people, and you want to keep having those good relationships as well. So how do you handle giving maybe feedback that might not necessarily be like, oh, I love it, or even going, Azizzar, thank you so much for your time and everything, but this is actually just not going to work. I'm going to go in a different direction.
Yeah. So look, I had a lot of that on this project.
Okay.
I've probably got a whole second album's worth of verses that didn't make the OG cut. So I might have to give you guys Antithesis Deluxe soon with all of these other features. And look, like I'm such a believer in artists that I would rather help and try and redirect them than cut them entirely.
Okay.
So a lot of times I'll go, I love what you wrote, but I don't like how you delivered it. Let's work on the delivery, And like, yeah, with artists, artists have probably the biggest egos of most humans, but you need to constructively work with an artist to be like, I'm not saying this is horrible.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it could be improved to make it fit what I'm needing from you.
Mm-hmm.
And any artist with their salt will be willing to go, okay, let's look at this, let's restructure, let's figure it out, And sometimes that comes in the sense of like, we need to restart the verse and I'll send you some inspiration to rewrite it. Sometimes it comes in just managing delivery, like with Uno, for example, on Sugar Water.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted him to have that really old school rap pocket in his verse. And when he delivered the verse, he was like, I'm just trying to make a profit out of this Phresh and touchdown and every other. And I was like, lyrically, incredible. Delivery, let's work on it. Okay. And I literally, we like for him to see the vision I was trying to capture from him, we literally did the raps line by line at first. Where I was telling him, rap it like this. I'm just trying to make a profit out of this passion, touchdown in every corner out of Atlas, like I'd really direct him. And then once we did that and he heard what the overall verse sounded like with what I wanted from him, he was like, oh, I get it. Okay, now let me take it from the top. And knocked it out. Like we did it in like 2 hours, in and out, done, Instances could be like, an artist just saying a funny word to me and I'm like, no, replace that with this. Like that happened, for example, on Cinderella on the album. There's a line where Nathan Blur says, all these lies, they've been killing my vibes, right? So his original line was, all these lies, they've been killing my mind. And I was like, it's a bit like intense for a track that's very like light and supposed to be fun. So I asked him, I was like, hey man, I'll ask you just to change that word at the end of the sentence. So please change it to, all these lies, they've been killing my vibes. Because that's a little bit less intense than like, you've been killing my mind,
Whoa.
So yeah, you over time, as you work with artists, you kind of like learn how to give feedback, how to give criticism without it coming across like you're just being pedantic.
Yeah.
And that's part of having a good relationship, is knowing that I can go to them and be like, hey, this ain't it, let's rework it.
Okay. And then what happens? Comes with time. What happens with, because let me ask you this first. I mean, how many different languages do you speak?
I speak Afrikaans, not as well as I used to, because I don't speak it fluently anymore. I go back home and I speak to my family and I have to like buffer. I'll be like,
So you no longer speak the savor Afrikaans.
Yeah, the first language Afrikaans is out the door. So I speak Afrikaans and English fluently because I live in Cape Town. I understand Xhosa pretty well. I can't speak it, so I can understand conversations, but I can't speak it. I'm I'm stuck between going Xhosa or going Zulu with my next language.
Okay.
But we'll get there. I'll find which one works for me. And then like I have understanding of some of the other languages, like there's phrases that pop up that we all learn.
Yes.
Asambe, like I know what that
Yes.
means.
Yes.
So, but fluently, I only really speak 2 languages. So I think I know what your question's gonna be.
Right. So with that being the case, then how do you then, when you're working with, let's say, a Les and he goes into heavy spitori, or if you're working with a Maglera, how do you then take what they have given you, but also make sure that it is in line with your vision at the end of the day? So how do we work around that?
So for me, the best way to test music is to play it to people who don't work in music. So people who just consume music for the sake of enjoying it.
Yes.
So I'll go to friends of mine that I know, okay, these guys, this is what they listen to. Or I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a style of music, it could be a region as well. So if I have friends who are from Pretoria or from the Northwest, I'll holler at them and be like, hey guys, you guys want to hear an exclusive of the upcoming album? And it's always like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And I'll play it and be like, be brutally honest, what do you guys think of the music? So I very much test it out before it ever gets to a release point. And I have a network of friends who I trust with my music, who I trust will give me like the right type of feedback. And then if I feel like it's really needed, I'll actually holler at people and be like, please give me like a rough translation of what this means.
Okay.
For example, like Holy Alpha has a Xhosa verse on, what's the song's name? Top 10.
Yes.
And I actually asked a friend of mine, I was like, just quickly sit with me and roughly translate what she's saying, because I need to know, if I'm writing a press release for a song, I need to make sure that what she says is being represented in that press release.
Yeah.
So I really try and make a lot of effort to understand what's being said, where it comes from. Or even like a lot of artists are very chill to be like, I actually get it a lot. They're like, do you know what I said in that part? And I'm like, please tell me. And then, they'll usually explain it. So yeah, there's methods of understanding and figuring it out and making it make sense,
That's dope.
And as I said, like, usually when you're cool with each other, it's not an issue at all.
Dope. I love that. I love the fact that you go that extra step. It's not just, oh, this sounds dope, thanks, let's put it on. You know what I mean? So as we're getting through this and we're almost done, of all of the joints, right? 10 joints, just under 45 minutes. Which would you say was the most difficult to get together?
Honestly, probably Township Deluxe, because a lot of features, a lot of moving parts, and the only track that I really co-produced with someone,
Okay.
So I didn't just want to be the creative lead by myself.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure that Eddie felt like he had say as well. I wanted to make sure that all the artists on the song were happy with what the final result was. So Township Deluxe was the most complicated purely because it had the most moving parts.
So many people on there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, so then I would assume it was also the most time consuming, just because of all those different moving parts.
Yeah, it was. Because we also went through a process of like finding multiple choruses. So the moment I heard Maglera's chorus, I was sold. But Eddie was like, no, okay, I have a different idea in mind. Okay, I'm gonna get someone else. So we had like 2 other choruses submitted. Cageism Spot was actually submitted as a chorus.
Oh.
And I was like, yo, it's so beautiful. But to me, Maglera's chorus was always the chorus from the get-go. Because it's such a relatable chorus. I mean, we all have those moments where, like he says, I spend all my nights looking at the stars, thinking about shining my light. We've all had that moment,
100%.
So when I heard that, I was like, nah, that's beautiful. I want to keep that.
Yeah.
So, we had multiple choruses, and then people get full of nonsense with like, oh, can you like pay for the Uber to get to the studio? All these different moving parts. So that one definitely took the most time because of all of the moving parts. But it came together so beautifully. I could never complain, you know.
Yeah, it's a really, really dope joint, and I actually love it, and I love the whole project. Quickly though, when you are creating music like this, when you create the beats, do you already have a name? You know, as far as naming conventions, do you already have a name in mind, and then send it to, let's say, Azizzar, and you're like, hey, Azizzar, I've got a joint called Township Deluxe. This is what I'd like you to do with it, or see how you feel about it? Or do you just go, hey, Azizzar, here's something, see what you do with it, and then maybe from, like you said, maybe from that first person's kind of flow and how they move on it, then it's like, hey, this sounds like it could be a Township Deluxe, or this sounds like it could be a Slay Queen or a Top 10. How do you go about the naming conventions?
So there's a few different ways, right? I sometimes name my beats randomly.
Okay.
And usually artists won't go with what the beat's original name is.
Okay.
The only instance on the album of that was Shark Week.
Okay.
I labeled the beat Shark Week and I sent it to Maglera. We were back and forthing on the topic of the song because we couldn't figure out the direction. And then he asked me, why did you call it Shark Week? And I explained it to him, and he was like, that's it. That's the concept. We're gonna write according to that, right? But usually I name the tracks after lines in the song.
Okay.
So Slay Queen is called Slay Queen because the chorus goes Slay Queen, Funubatsi Slay Queen. Top 10 is called Top 10 because of the chorus. Sugar Water, same, right? So I usually try and name the track after what, like the opening line of the chorus, or like a callback song on the chorus. So like On Life is called On Life because that's how the chorus ends. You know, she goes, that's on life.
Yes.
On life. But like, again, Township Deluxe, for example, a lot of TKZ songs, they would name the song after one of the rap lines in one of the raps. So they never used to necessarily name it after choruses all the time.
Yes.
They would find like a funky, and I mean, it's not just TKZ, it's a lot of quieter artists. They'll find like a really funky line in the song and then name it after that. So fun fact, originally the original name for Township Deluxe was No Vices. We were going to call it No Vices. And then Eddie was like, nah, okay, that's not the name for this type of song. It sounds like a hip-hop song. And I was like, yeah, he's actually not wrong. And then my manager was actually like, call the song Township Deluxe. And I was like, why? And he said, because Maglera's opening line is, welcome to Township Deluxe. And I was like, actually, I don't know how I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's obviously, like, I wanted to name it actually after, there's a line in Kid X's song where he goes, this the evolution of Ipansul, but that was too long.
Yes.
So we stuck with Township Deluxe because, I mean, there was the question of like, that's not necessarily my background. Does it make sense for me to call the song that? But my justification there is, if I take away that title because of my personal attachments to, you know, not being a kid from a township, I take that away from everyone else of the song who has that connection to, you know, growing up in townships, township culture. And it's not that it's not something that I've been exposed to, so I have appreciation for it. So after thinking about it for a little bit, I was like, nah, this is fair. I can run with it. And I think it's the perfect name for that song.
I love it. Okay, so I still wanted to ask you, your drop, Spit to K Faith, I saw man. Where does that come from? How did we end up there?
So I did. Let me just close this door. No I'm problem. Actually chilling in a studio's booth, and there's kids recording drum kits here. The only place I have peace is when I hide in the studio. So I have a song off of my first EP, In Good Faith, called Asfunu Lala.
Yes.
With Phresh Clique.
Yes.
And they are basically, how's it, man? Can you just close there? Thank you. Rude. Don't knock. Yeah, I've got a song on my first EP, In Good Faith, with Phresh Clique called Asfunu Lala. and we recorded the song. And then they were like, the song needs like an intro. Let's put down the intro. And like they were like jamming out, and then they just started rapping. Spets okay, fate, I sugar man. Spets okay, fate, I sugar man. And then for a very long time, my tag was just this like American guy going, gotta know it's K blood. And I was like, that's actually so lame, you know. And then the one day I was like, okay, let me listen back to my old music and see if there's no like K Faith tag somewhere there in the works. And then when I listened to Asfunulala, I was like, yo, that would actually be the perfect tag. So it works. For some reason, it just works. Say like every track I put it on, whether it's fast or slow or whatever, it just works. So I've kept it, and it's something like when I walk into certain spaces now, people don't just go like, "Hey, Kate, what's up?" I'll walk into a studio and people will be like, "Spets okay, Faith,
That's dope. I love that for you. I love
so
that.
It's just kind of stuck. I now have a second one, which you can hear at the end of Ama Mene Mene, which is youngster going, make some noise with K Faith in this mother poop. And I'm gonna figure out how I can take out the profanity, like a clever way of removing that. And then I'm gonna use that as my second tag, but I'll always keep the Spets okay Faith.
I love it. It's mad dope. So, difficult question. Right now, what is your favorite song of your own album?
Hey, I don't know, So, yeah, it's so difficult, but let me answer it like this. The song on the album that to me is the most accurate representation of what I would think is the style of Antithesis music, and it was my favorite to create, it was my favorite to record, it was my favorite to, like the version that I started with is very different to the version that you hear today, and to me it's also the weirdest song on the project, and it has to be Shark Week with Maglera Doe Boy.
Wow.
I have a very big soft spot for it because of how weird it is. It's so experimental, and I'm so grateful for Maglera's contribution because he was so like patient and open with working with me on this really weird sounding song. Like a lot of artists would be like, nah, dash that. Let's put on some like Peerborn or Metro Booming sounding beat that you've made. Like people are generally scared to jump on something that's not like it doesn't immediately sound like a banger. And he was just patient, and we spent a lot of time writing the song, figuring out the theme, figuring out the direction of the song. And when it came together, like it really, like for a long time it was my favorite song on the album. But then, like Township Deluxe was born, and Top 10 was born, and Ama Mene Mene was born, and I equally love those. Those are some of my favorite tracks on the project. And like Sugar Water was made, and then suddenly I got Ready D on the track next to Uno, and I was like, it's so incredible. So there's so many tracks that I truly love on the project, so I wouldn't be able to single out one as above the other's favorite, because I've been making this project for a long time, and each track kind of signifies a different time in the creation process. I started Antithesis in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was a version of the album done in 2020 because 2020 was gonna be our year, and then COVID was like, wait.
You thought, is it okay?
All those dreams. No. So there was a version of Antithesis ready to be rolled out in 2020, but obviously COVID hit, and I was like, no. I'm not dropping this project now. Everyone's scared, and everyone is worried, and never in our lifetimes have we ever seen lockdowns where countries were closed. Like, I know we just busy coming out of it, but it's really so crazy what we went through. Yeah, I don't think we give ourselves enough like credit for making it through this pandemic.
No, and I also with what you're saying, I also don't think that we all fully realize the impact that it had on us as people. Just who you
Yeah,
are as
yeah,
Azizzar or as Kay, like
yeah,
what 2020 did to you, you probably, if 2020 hadn't happened, you would be somebody completely different. And I think that we
yeah,
don't take enough, like we don't stop and go, shit, what?
yeah, yeah, truly. So I was like, there's no way. Even for myself, like I had myself to worry about, life, continuing being able to afford your rent and
Your
making
life,
just a
just
living during
afford your
COVID.
life.
And then there's like stressing about your family and your siblings and like the people you care for who aren't your family. And like there was this like, no, I'm not going to release this now because I feel like people's priorities are in different places. But there was also like, I'm not going to release this now because I have things to worry about. I have
Yeah.
to stress if my family is going to be fine for 21 days of lockdown. um no shade. And yeah, it was just the timing just wasn't right. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit on it. It's fine. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the year we'll have a vaccine and then life will be back to normal. Yeah, fast forward to 2022, August. Well, when did I drop in July? 22nd of July, 2022. We
Yes.
finally got the project. So I just constantly during that time swapped out some songs because eventually certain songs start aging, whether
Okay.
you like it or not.
Yeah.
Um, so some tracks started showing their age a little bit. I swapped those out with some newer sounding songs, but I'm grateful that I did wait and that I did delay because the delay gave us Township Deluxe. The delay gave us Ama Mene Mene. The delay gave us Sugar Water.
Right.
So without that delay, this project wouldn't be what it is now.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy and so content with the final version of this album that as much as there was this like whoop in life,
Yes.
I'm happy it got to where it got to. And I'm a very firm believer of things happen for a reason. So to me this is just backing that up.
So before I let you go, okay, what is the ultimate goal for you with your craft, with your artistry? What is it that you ultimately want to achieve? Some people go into this kind of thing and be like, my ultimate goal is to be at the Grammys. And then somebody else might come into it and go, well, my ultimate goal is to see more people that look like me in this kind of space.
Yeah.
So what for you is your ultimate goal with your craft?
My ultimate goal with my craft is to just put where I'm on a bigger map. Like I always felt the need to tie things back to Cape Town, but I realized that that's not what needs to happen. I just need to believe in myself, keep working, keep achieving things, and every achievement I ever get in this world will be the artist or the producer from Cape Town. So I'll be making my city proud wherever I go in the world. Um, I also think being one of the greats in the country as a woman in production is something I want to achieve. Being one of the top 10 best producers, top 5 best producers, whatever it might be in South Africa. Um, and look, also to just make music that hits, that resonates with people. Like nothing makes me happier than someone telling me like, yo, I listened to that song and it really made me think deeper about life, or it really impacted me, or it really
Yeah.
took me, you know it really lifted my spirits, or made me feel great, or made me feel like confident and excited. So like it's very different speaking to me because I'm not telling you the story of an artist, I'm telling you the story of the producer behind the music. So
Yes.
my platform is very different. But I think, yeah, ultimately the goal would be to be one of the best in our country and beyond. Like I would love to do more collaborations with other African artists.
Nice.
And after that, more whatever else. But the focus for me is more like work with other African artists because I truly think the African continent is making some of the best music in the world right now.
Yeah.
And like I said to someone the other day, I'd way rather go and travel all over our continent than go to like Europe or go to America.
Yeah.
Because we get to see what they do all the time. We don't, like, I can't tell you now what's hot and happening in Kenya, what's hot and happening in Nigeria. Like, we know the artists who blow up from there, but I don't know those industries. And I share a continent with them. So I should know what's going on there.
I feel you.
Yeah, and the idea is to like, yeah, I guess be one of the best in my country and then be an export for the rest of the continent to, you know, make people go like, that woman is incredible at what she does and her music is amazing. And yeah, I think that's the main, some of the main goals.
Well, look, I think that you are well on your way. And thank you so much for taking time to kick it with me. I'm looking forward to everything else that you've got going on. And love Antithesis. Shout out to you and to everybody else who was involved.